Thank you, Chair. Advocate Johnson, you and I have known each other for a very long time.
That is correct, Honourable
And
Member.
we have probably a little more than a professional relationship. We've known each other for a very long time.
That is correct.
General Makwenazi has indicated that he has sources within the IDEC. Do you have any view on this issue?
Honourable Member, it was quite alarming to have him say he had sources. In fact, my management and I sat down to engage on what did he mean by he had sources. And I think what was most perplexing is why would a provincial commissioner, a used to be acting national commissioner of police, need sources, not just in IDEC, in any other law enforcement agency? Why did he need sources? I have always spoken to General Mkhwanazi. If he had any misgivings, he had any concerns, there is no way he didn't know he could call me. In the same way, Honourable Member, that he called me on the 2nd of July to escalate an issue and ask me to contact someone. It is very worrying. It remains worrying. And I'm not sure why he has sources, what it is these sources are feeding him. But it is very disconcerting to have a senior member of police whom I still respect regardless of what he said. Why do you want sources in IDEC?
Thank you. I had a question on the allegations of a rogue unit, but I'm going to stay away from it because of the apparent controversy of the word rogue. It's a bit like immediately, something we need to avoid. So you've mentioned in your affidavit, I noticed, references to death threats. So
That is correct, Honourable
these
Member.
are sadly a part of the life of most prosecutors. At some point or another, that happens.
It is, but in my almost 30 years, it was the first time it happened to me and to me directly. And given that we had dealt with contentious and or high-profile matters over the years, I had never myself received a death threat. So for me, this was different and very difficult, yes. The threat still remains, which also makes it then even more difficult.
Yes, they remain unpleasant, more particularly when they have an effect on your family. But what I want to ask you is, while I understand that this is upsetting and disconcerting, can you tell us how this affects how you do your work, how it affects your appetite to do an already challenging job?
I have said previously, I'll repeat, the fight against corruption is not for sissies. And so you cannot be weak in this fight. What I won't be, and I can't afford to be, is arrogant and careless, which I have sought not to be given the death threats. But what I can do is step away from this work. If I step away, who takes over? And what happens to the other person who takes over? My life is no more meaningful than someone else who has to step into my shoes. What it has done is it's just made me more weary. It has made me more alive. Of course, death threats happen. People have been taken out, auditors, liquidators, etc. You read about it. You say to yourself, this is absolutely terrible. But when it comes at you, you directly, it really makes you pause. So I've had my pause moment. I've had to get over my pause moment because I've got to do my job. But like I say, I'm not arrogant about what has happened, and I'm not going to be careless. I have a family that I love, but I also have a job that I love. So par for the course, what do I do? And if I step away from this, Honourable Breytenbach, I have to ask myself, where do I go? And what do I do?
Thank you. So there have been suggestions that that IDEC is or could be abusing their processes. This, of course, can only be so if you could cherry-pick your referrals, because that's how the system works, and initiate them meri motu. So Section 27 referrals, in my experience, don't work like that. Could you just briefly explain the process of a Section 27 referral and how, and whether or not you are restricted then to the prosecution of only corruption and organized crime, or can the net be set a little wider to include other charges once it has been referred?
Thank you, Honourable Member. So the intake of the matters and how matters come in is restricted by the Section 27 process. But once you have decided that it falls within the mandate and are able to take on the matter, your investigation can be cast as wide as your mandate allows, over and beyond just the allegations that were made, if, as part of your investigation, other evidence is unearthed. So let's just say that in a matter that is strictly in the IDEC mandate, there arises a different offense. We would have to deal with it. We are, after all, law enforcement. So I can't choose to deal with 90% of something and then hand over the 10%.
Thank you, Advocate Johnson. The IG report on the crime intelligence property purchases. Have you received a referral in this regard? Have you been placed in possession of the report? And if not, do you know why or where the holdup is?
Honourable Breytenbach, I was aware that the Inspector General was looking at the procurement issues. And I was made aware that the Inspector General would be submitting a report. And there was an indication that the Inspector General was to make a recommendation because IDEC was seized with some of the crime intelligence matters, because by then some of the arrests had been made, that those matters would be referred to IDEC. They were never referred to IDEC. I have not seen the report, and so I do not know if, in fact, that final recommendation was made for a referral. I also don't know the extent of what all he would then have investigated. I'm not sure why it was not referred, if, in fact, a recommendation was made that it be referred to IDEC.
Thank you. Then the National Commissioner, Matlala, has admitted that he, in fact, did not heed warnings that emanated from IDEC, that Cat Matlala's 36 million rand health service tender may well be dodgy, and he allowed it to go ahead. After Minister Mqunu raised issues with the tender, he told him that he got a call from IDEC warning him. Do you have any knowledge of this call? Do you know from whence it came, how it emanated?
When the matter was referred to IDEC and it was given to the investigators, I am aware that they did engage the National Commissioner to indicate that we do have this matter, and to, I think they did source his views, and such a discussion did in fact take place. So he was made aware that there was in fact a referral to IDEC, and yet the contract had not yet been cancelled. Contract was cancelled much later than in May.
Thank you, Advocate Johnson. Thank you, Chair. Bearing in mind that this is a limit and not a target, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honourable Breytenbach. Is your hand up, Honourable Sangon? Who else had his or her hand up? It's only you, and no triggers. Thank you. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. No, it's a clarity-seeking question, Advocate Johnson. So, what I understood on Advocate Breytenbach, Honourable Breytenbach's question was that the National Commissioner had been made aware that the contract was dodgy before the Minister asked him to look into it, which would be before December 24 or something. Now, he had said, no, it's fine, and he continued. Are you saying that he had been informed by IDEC before December, or it was only when the referral was made, which I'm assuming is after the 24th of December, that you then indicated to him that you already had a referral?
That is correct, Honourable Sangoni. I'm not aware of what engagements the Minister had with the National Commissioner, but after the matter was referred to us, we made the National Commissioner aware that IDEC is looking at the tender, yes.
Not that there was a referral from someone else. It's the same referral from SAPS.
It's the same referral from SAPS of the 16th of February, Honourable Sangoni.
Can I get indication, Honorable Breytenbach, is it Honorable Klopper or Honorable Kolabanat?
Honorable Klopper, thank you, Chair.
Honorable Klopper, it's now your time.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Advocate Johnson. The first question I would like to ask is on Major General Pilani Lushaba. If I heard you correctly, you mentioned that he went back to the office and that he breached his bail conditions. Can you offer any explanation to why he wasn't arrested?
So to be clear, there are two matters that he was facing. In the first matter, there was bail conditions that were different from the second matter. In the second, in the matter where he was told not to go to his office, a presiding officer removed that condition. So his condition was not to interfere with witnesses. So when he went to CI's head office where he works, the concern that was raised by the witnesses are, will he then interfere? And that was their fear. With him, that condition fell away because a different presiding officer considered that condition, that he not be allowed to go to CI.
Thank you, Advocate. You said, and before receiving the phones for that download purpose period that you mentioned, you stated that you already had concerns that it would have been tampered with, which subsequently your cyber experts indeed observed that there was data that was deleted, and a lot of it. Was that deletion timestamped to the period that the phones were in the custody of the PKTT?
Honourable Chair and members, we await a formal report from the cyber expert. And one is unable to give you that time frame now. It's part of the investigation. Safe to say, at the time of the download for IDEC, the cyber expert was able to say at that very time that data had been deleted.
Advocate, did you open up a parallel inquiry into this potential obstruction of justice if the evidence was indeed tampered with? As you say, you know it was deleted. I'm not sure if you know if it was deleted in the time span of PKTT or whether SAPS had it at that time. Did you do an inquiry in that direction?
Once we have the report from the cyber expert and a timeline is then looked at, one would consider what our recourse is. It's also not automatic to open an inquiry because where do we go to? Safe to indicate what would the impact be of that the deletions and the time frame within which they happened. If it causes really big gaps in our investigation, it would be something to look at. But even if it was deleted in the time of the PKTT, but there is no impact on the IDEC case, then IDEC doesn't have a resolution to go back and to open an inquiry. We will if it affects our criminal matter.
Advocate, Lieutenant General Mkonazi has alleged that IDEC interfered with the PKTT matters. Based on your warrants and referral letter, do you believe his assertion was factually mistaken or just deliberately misleading?
Honourable Member, I don't know what informed his decision or his assertion. We had nothing to do with the investigation, if he's talking about the investigation into Molefe and into Matlala. There's nothing that we are doing in the Matlala tender matter that could have done anything to obstruct and or to cause any disruption in the investigations that the organized crime, and Honourable James corrected me, the counter-intelligence unit of PKTT were doing. We would not have been able to disrupt that work because our exercise was completely different.
Advocate, I just want to go back to the phones. When you wrote that the phones were already on, was that intended to flag a possible breach of forensic protocol, or were you just merely describing the handover?
It is a breach of protocol. The phones are, and I can only talk from my own experience of dealing with such matters. When the phones are seized, they are put into the evidence bags. Those bags are sealed. When they are opened, the accused persons and or suspects are asked for access codes, PIN, fingerprint, biometrics, if they use those. The phones must then be downloaded And those original devices must be put back into a new evidence bag and sealed. You don't work with the devices. You work with the downloaded data. It doesn't matter what the criminal allegation is that you're investigating. So it was a red flag when these phones in the evidence bag that is sealed were in fact on.
General Sabia, when he was here, he commented on crime intelligence and actors with the similar capabilities that they could both delete and insert data or messages specifically on devices. And I probed him and asked on him as well as civilians. He agreed. Would you agree with this assertion that this can be done? Especially on the insertion part, not so much the deletion.
I think the deletion we all know.
Yes,
Take
yes,
phone,
obvious.
put on, click, delete, delete, delete. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to do those.
Correct.
But I am unaware, I heard what he said, but I'm unaware of crime intelligence or anyone else in law enforcement having that capability. He should have backed it up, because that is a serious allegation to make, because if I remove myself as the ID, as a normal South African citizen, it would cause sleepless nights about who all can access our devices and plant information to implicate us. I'm not aware of that capability.
Given that there was multiple DPCI, PKTT, IDEC, all simultaneously touching, the Matlala matter at some point or another, in your view, who should be the sole custodianship of this digital evidence to avoid duplication? And then, obviously, secondly, and very importantly, avoid compromise, if I can put it that way.
So to be clear, Honourable Member, I'm not aware of any investigations that DPCI is supposed to be doing with regards to the Matlala matter. And I take that also from the conversation the investigators had when they called Major General Kadwa to ask about the devices. He never said. He said he's not aware, which meant they weren't working on it. That is how I read it. But for me, we are investigating, IDEC is investigating a small part. We're investigating, not to minimize the corruption, but we're investigating one matter. I do not know the volume of the matters that the organized crime and the counter intelligence unit of the PKTT are looking at. There's no issue with them keeping those phones. We wanted the data, which we now have.
And my last question, Advocate, to close up, does this fragmentation, or there seems to be a bit of a fragmentation in the interagency coordination, do you propose any reforms, perhaps a joint digital forensic protocol or a single evidence repository? What would you recommend to avoid this kind of situation in the future?
I do not mean to sound blunt when I say all of us should just get over ourselves and start talking to one another and working more closely. It doesn't require protocol. It just requires us being able to see the bigger picture. I know that IDEC would have appreciated if General Mkhwanazi or anyone else who had any misgivings talked to us about what we were looking at. I have no doubt, Honourable Member, that if we talked, we would have been able to look at everything Matlala. IDEC has no interest in Katitso Molefe because we don't have any corruption matters there. But we could have had a singular holistic approach in addressing the criminality alleged against Vusimuzi Cat Matlala. I believe we would have been doubly successful than doing it as we are doing it currently. I don't know that you need protocol. I think we have so many documents that talk to interagency working and that we should work together. I just don't know how you force that accountability and force people to work together. A lot of it is about personalities. And that's why I say it's unfortunate we should have talked to one another.
Thank you, Advocate Johnson, and thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Chair. I'm done.
Thank you, Honorable Topper. I'm going to slot the third speaker before we break. Let's go and see how the EFF use their time. But it has been very impressive, Honorable Members, that you have used time sparingly. So from 10 minutes past 6. From 10 minutes past 6 until 18:55, the time is allocated to the EFF. And from there, We are going to take one member, either Mngwango or Honorable James. One of you must be ready after the EFF before we break. Thank you.